This is your USMNT Abroad weekend update from October 20th to October 22nd of 2023. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to the US Men's National Team Abroad series, a channel favorite where every Monday we update you on how the Yanks did abroad over the weekend. But listen, we are coming from the international break, so a lot of the US Men's National Team players abroad were unlimited minutes, which makes sense due to travel and the time zone. Next weekend, it should be back to normal. Now, one story that broke out this past week was that Timothy Weah hates Harry Potter. Now, I can deal with that. I don't hate Harry Potter. I actually like Harry Potter. But here's the thing. Someone needs to ask him his thoughts on Pokemon. Does Tim Weah like Pokemon or not? Now, you can tell me in the comment section down below. Are you team Pokemon or are you team Harry Potter? Which one do you prefer? I had this debate with some friends. All right, leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Drop a like in the video if you haven't already. And that's all. Let's just start the episode. Okay, so as always, let's start with the top 5 leagues in Europe. And the first one we're going to talk about is the English Premier League. So we'll start with Matt Turner from Nottingham Forest. On Saturday, Matt Turner started and played the full 90 minutes for Nottingham Forest during their 2-2 draw with Luton Town at home. Now, I'm not going to lie, this was a bad result for Nottingham Forest. You have to beat Luton Town at home, especially when you have a 2-0 lead going into the final 15 minutes. Now, I'm not a Nottingham Forest fan, so I don't care about that as much. And as for Matt Turner, he had zero blame on both goals. Those were just two awful defensive moments from the field players. Terrible defending that cost them 2 points. Next up is Chris Richards from Crystal Palace. On Saturday, Richards stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes for Crystal Palace during their 4-0 loss to Newcastle in the English Premier League. So Richards is one of those players that if he wants to get consistent minutes, he probably has to go on a loan this winter. Roy Hudson will absolutely not bench Mark Guehi or Anderson. Moving on, we actually have an American center back that played in the English Premier League for a club that is actually an English Championship club disguised as a Premier League club. Seriously, Sheffield United is terrible. And if you're a Sheffield fan, I apologize, but it's just not a good team. So let's talk about Austin Trusty. On Saturday, Trusty got his second start in a row for Sheffield United and played the full 90 minutes during their 2-1 loss to Manchester United. And honestly, this was one of Sheffield's best defensive performances this season, in my humble opinion. And even though that's a pretty low standard, it might be enough to keep Trusty in the starting 11 going forward. In other words, Sheffield United ain't very good. And somehow, Scott McTominay keeps scoring for Manchester United. He has like 3 goals in the past 2 games, which is extremely random. So Fulham plays this Monday, so I have no updates on A-Rob and Tim Ream. If you're watching the game, the Fulham match this Monday, drop it in the comment section down below because we record this on Sunday. Tyler Adams from Bournemouth, he's out until at least February, probably February or March. Tyler Adams had surgery once again, and he won't be back anytime soon. Unfortunately, we're just wishing him a speedy recovery. Kind of sucks that he got injured, came back, and re-aggravated it, but it is what it is. As long as he's back for the Copa America, we should be fine. Lastly, from the English Premier League, I want to talk about Luca Koleosho from Burnley. On Saturday, Koleosho started off on the bench and was subbed in at halftime for Burnley during their 3-0 loss to Brentford in the English Premier League. So Koleosho looked fine. He's always aggressive, highly involved, getting in good positions, making good runs. So it's been a bit of a surprise that he got benched for the past 2 games at Burnley. He has been doing fine for them most of the season, which is also a low bar, just like I said about Austin Trusty with Sheffield. But still, it should be enough for him to continue to start. Maybe, and here's my conspiracy theory, and you're going to want to pay attention to this because I'm very good with conspiracy theories. Maybe they found out that Koleosho is actually American and not Italian. And then as soon as the Brits found out, even though I think Company is his coach and he's not British, they benched Koleosho. Yes, that's the narrative I'm pushing and I will continue to do so. And speaking of Italian, let's go to Italy. And now let's talk about the boys in the Serie A, the Italian First Division. We're moving away from England and going to Italy to talk about Milan versus Juventus. Christian Pulisic and Musah versus Weston McKennie and Timothy Weah. On Sunday, all 4 Americans started. Pulisic and Musah for Milan, while Timothy Weah and Weston McKennie started for Juventus. So we were obviously pumped for this match, and it was disappointing to say the least. And I know exactly who to blame, and that is Greg Berhalter. Berhalter's presence just ruined the vibes of this game. The moment I saw Greg Berhalter in the pregame show at Paramount Plus, I knew this game was going to be a stinker. I mean, what can I say? This man is just bad vibes. That's all I'll say. Okay, so back to the match. The match ended with a 1-0 Juventus win. Yunus Musah played the full 90 minutes, and I personally think he didn't play well. I don't know. He wasn't a disaster. He just really wasn't good for this match. Weston McKennie played the full 90 minutes for Juventus, while Tim Weah played 84 minutes for Juventus as a right wing back, essentially. And Weah sort of got an assist. I mean, he had a normal pass to Locatelli that shot from distance and it went in off a deflection. And I guess that counts as an assist, even though to a certain extent it's a bit misleading. The stat of an assist can be misleading, right? There's different levels to an assist. I know there's also different levels to a goal, but at the end of the day, a goal is a goal. Sometimes you can get an assist for just passing the ball sideways and having Messi dribble through everyone and scoring. So it can be a bit misleading. That's why sometimes I prefer the expected assist stats instead of the actual assist stats. But in terms of goal, I prefer goals instead of expected goals. As for Pulisic, he wasn't really playing well until he got subbed off, but that's not the reason he got subbed out at the 43rd minute. Milan's center back got a red card, so they had to sacrifice one forward to send in a center back, and Pulisic was the forward of choice. So overall, it was a very disappointing, hyped game. But before we move on to the next performance updates, let me quickly talk about Fox Soccer, because these mother lickers are not helping the Americans beat the Americans lack culture allegations. Seriously, if it's up to Fox, we will never beat those allegations. And trust me, a lot of Americans know their geography. They have culture. Like, listen to this. They literally made an artwork for the Milan versus Juventus match with the freaking Colosseum as the artwork. Last time I checked, Milan and Turin are not located in Rome. This is literally as if the Lakers and Celtics faced each other and the artwork to promote the game was, I don't know, the White House or the Statue of Liberty. Sure, they represent the United States, but they don't quite represent those cities. You get the point, and all I want to say is thanks again, Fox. You probably should have never allowed Alexi Lalas to take over the marketing team. Now, I don't know if he did take over the marketing team. That's just something I'm speculating, which probably is not true, but it's also not far-fetched when we're talking about Fox Soccer. Okay, let's head to Germany and talk about the Americans in the Bundesliga. So why don't we start with Gio Reyna from Borussia Dortmund. On Friday, Gio Reyna started off on the bench and came in at the 62nd minute for Dortmund during their 1-0 win over Werder Bremen. Look, just to oversimplify the take here, Gio Reyna was very good for Dortmund. Easily their best player off the bench, and I think it's fair to say that he was one of the game changers that led to this 1-0 victory. His stats were also quite impressive. Just keep in mind that Gio only played 28 minutes, and he still managed to have a 96% passing accuracy with 27 out of 28 being accurate. He created 2 chances, had a blocked shot that could have been a goal. He also somehow had 44 touches throughout those 28 minutes, along with 2 out of 2 successful dribbling attempts while only being dispossessed once. He was also able to win 4 out of 5 ground duels, and he was fouled twice. Gio Reyna was highly involved, and it's great to see, especially when you take into account that he wasn't really expected to get any minutes. He didn't only get 30 minutes, but he had a major impact for Dortmund, and hopefully his minutes start to trend up. Next up would have been Brenden Aaronson, but he got 0 minutes for Union Berlin over the weekend as they lost to Stuttgart. Union Berlin has been terrible, and Brenden Aaronson's season hasn't really been good for the club as well. So let's move on from that and go to John Brooks from Hoffenheim. On Saturday, Brooks started and was pulled off at halftime for Hoffenheim during their 3-1 loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. As for Paxton Aronson, he stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes for Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, look, I watched the first half and I tuned out after that. And I'll put it this way. While researching for this video, I was actually not surprised that John Brooks was subbed out at halftime. He looked terrible in the first half. I mean, I defend the guy a lot, but sometimes it feels like he just doesn't know his weaknesses or is not aware of it. He He lost focus multiple times in the first half just ball watching. He was also poorly positioned while playing in a high line. He gave up on some balls that he probably shouldn't. The list goes on. So all I'll say is this was not a good game from John Brooks or Hoffenheim. Next up is Joe Scally and Pefok from Borussia Mönchengladbach. On Sunday, Joe Scally and Pefok both started off on the bench for Gladbach during their 3-1 loss to Cologne. Scally was subbed in at halftime and Pefok was sent in around the 79th minute. Still in the Bundesliga, the next player we're going to talk about is Kevin Paredes from Wolfsburg. On Saturday, Paredes started off on the bench and was subbed in the 78th minute for Wolfsburg during their 2-1 loss to Leverkusen. Last but not least in Germany, we have Leonard Maloney from Heidenheim. On Sunday, Maloney started and went the full 90 minutes for Heidenheim during their 5-2 loss to Augsburg. We're almost done with the top 5 leagues in Europe, so now let's go to La Liga and talk about Luca de la Torre from Celta de Vigo. On Saturday, Luca de la Torre started and played 81 minutes for Celta de Vigo during their 3-0 loss to Atletico Madrid in Spain, and Celta de Vigo are currently in the relegation zone. Now, before we go on to France and talk about the best center forward in CONCACAF following Balogun that plays for Monaco, I want to kindly request for you to smash the like button so we can hit 1,000 likes in this video for really no reason besides just to help Tactical Manager TV. One of the most overrated channels on YouTube. So overrated, or as overrated as most English players. Not really. I think we are actually underrated. English players are overrated. Let's talk about Balogun. Even though he's not English, he's American and English. On Sunday, Balogun started and played 88 minutes for Monaco during their 2-1 win over Metz in Ligue 1. And no, these are not the New York Mets. This is like the French Mets, and they just eat a lot of baguettes and croissants. That's all they eat in France, right? Or I mean, what else do they eat there? Cheese? So after a quiet first half, I would say Balogun had a very good second half. He had no goals, no assists, but he had a very strong performance, creating an opportunity for himself that was saved by the goalkeeper, setting up his teammates twice that they probably should have scored. Minamino at least should have scored his opportunity. And if Minamino was a bit better on his passing or crossing in one of the moments, Balogun probably would have scored. That guy probably shot on goal and Balogun couldn't reach the ball to push it into the back of the net. So let's put it this way. If Minamino did a bit better with his finishing and passing, Balogun probably would have had a goal or assist or both in this game. Regardless, Monaco won, Balogun played well, and they still lead the league. We're done with the top 5 leagues. Now let's go to the Netherlands and talk about the Eredivisie. Why don't we start with PSV, the PSV boys, Ricardo Pepi, Serginho Dest, and Malik Tillman. On Saturday, all 3 Americans, Pepi, Tillman, and Dest, start off on the bench for PSV during their 3-1 win over Fortuna Sittard. So context is needed here. Dest was being rested after the international break, and he stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes. Malik Tillman was coming back from an injury, and he was only subbed in around the 79th minute. And Ricardo Pepi, he is a backup, and he was only subbed in around the 79th minute with Malik Tillman. Also, PSV has a massive Champions League match during the midweek where they're going to play Lens away, and they absolutely need a win if they want to still be in the race to finish top 2 of their group and go through to the knockout rounds, or at least to get a 3rd place and play in the Europa League. But we're done with PSV. Now let's talk about Taylor Booth from Utrecht, and he is officially back from injury. Even though he kind of already was, he's now back and he started. On Sunday, Utrecht and Ajax clashed in what can be called this season an Eredivisie relegation battle. Believe it or not, yes, Utrecht and Ajax are both in the relegation zone this season. Sure, Ajax has 2 games in hand, but that does not mean they're going to win those 2 matches. Ajax has been having a terrible season. So back to the US men's national team players abroad, Taylor Booth started for Utrecht and played 62 minutes for them during their 4-3 win over Ajax. When he was subbed out, the match was still 2-2. I didn't really watch this match, so I can't comment on his performance, but based off the stats, it looks like he did okay. Nothing too good, nothing too bad. Next up would have been Jordi Mihailovic from AZ Alkmaar that also plays in the Netherlands, but he stayed on the bench the full 90 minutes once again, and it is rumored that he will be heading back to MLS very soon. They're saying he's going to go to the Chicago Fire. I can't confirm or deny those rumors, but it looks like it might happen. Now let's leave the Netherlands and go back to the United Kingdom and talk about the Americans that play in the EFL Championship. Now keep in mind, Josh Sargent is still injured, so he's not playing. But the other Americans, well, one of them is Haji Wright, and he's a backup for Coventry. And then you got Reggie Cannon that made his debut for QPR. Look, Sargent is probably the only American worth covering from a US men's national team perspective, but occasionally we will be going through Haji Wright and Reggie Cannon's performances. Keep in mind also that QPR is in a deep relegation battle right now, and Coventry is a mid-table team, and Haji Wright is a backup for them. We'll cover those two players, but not every week because, you know, the episode will get too long and I don't know, maybe we're just lazy or maybe they're not that relevant at the moment. But we'll cover them from time to time, don't worry. Still in the United Kingdom, let's talk about Cameron Carter-Vickers from Celtic. Sunday, Carter-Vickers started and played the full 90 minutes for Celtic during their 4-1 win over Hearts in Scotland. After that, let's go to Belgium and quickly go through the Americans that play there, or some of the Americans that play there. And the first one is Gaga Slonina from Eupen. On Friday, Gaga Slonina started and played the full 90 minutes for Eupen during their 4-1 loss to Union Saint. Eupen is the worst defense in Belgium with 26 goals conceded in just 11 matches. So does that mean Gaga Slonina has been playing poorly? I'm not sure. I'll dive into that next week, but he's definitely been busy. Next up is Mark McKenzie from Genk, and on Sunday, Mark McKenzie started and played the full 90 minutes for Genk during their 4-0 win over Mechelen in Belgium. McKenzie helped his team get a clean sheet, and he got an assist as well. Sam Vines is still injured, and Brian Reynolds from Westerlo was not with the team. I couldn't find any report on the reason he wasn't with the team, but the guy got man of the match on his last performance, and he's not suspended, so I'm assuming Brian Reynolds has some type of minor injury. Christopher Lund, that plays in the Italian second division, the left back that was with the US men's national team. Palermo plays this Monday, so if you're watching the Palermo game, drop a comment down below on how Christopher Lund did. Now let's go to South America and talk about Johnny Cardoso from Internacional. On Sunday, Johnny started and was subbed off at halftime for Internacional during their 7-1 win over Santos. So they were up 3-0 at halftime, and he was coming back from a long trip from the United States to Brazil. That's why Johnny was subbed out early. But I'll say one thing, watching Santos and their downfall this season has been sad. They're such a legendary club, and they might actually get relegated in Brazil. Last but not least, we have Alejandro Zendejas that plays in Liga MX for Club America. On Saturday, Zendejas started off on the bench and was subbed in around the 61st minute to rescue Club America from a 3-3 draw. Zendejas scored a golazo from outside the box at the 76th minute to give Club America a 4-3 win. Keep in mind that Club America currently leads Liga MX 5 points ahead of Tigres. Alright everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go and to comment down below. Do you prefer Pokemon? Do you prefer Harry Potter? Oh, and I do have one thing to tell you. We will be doing a MLS predictions video this week. And if you made it this far in the video, I have one thing to ask you. Comment down below which are your top 3 US men's national team dual nationals that we need to cap tie as soon as possible. Because we're doing a video on that and I would like to hear your opinion. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.